Okay, so now, was there even any modeling at all? Welcome back to a new Hints and Theories video, this time to episode number 3. And in this episode we got to see another mole briefing scene. And well, it seems like the mole's plan doesn't work out so far, or let's say not anymore. And this of course leads us to the question whether or not there was any real modeling in that episode at all. Nevertheless, I think it is important to talk about all the things that happened in that episode. First things first, I want to say that I really think it is so sad that Nele had to leave because of her injury, because this is of course not how you want to leave that game. I hope that she is better and recovered now after all that time. But still, yeah, I wish she would have stayed a little bit longer because I thought she was a very interesting candidate. Now let's head to all the hints and theories, and in this episode again we had more like 2 tasks than 3, because I wouldn't really count that movie which they saw as a task. Nevertheless, it was interesting, but not so sure if that really helps us in figuring out who DeMol is. So now off to task number 1, or better said, to the discussion that happened before task number 1, because in that task it was very important in which group you were. And one person that was a bit, let's say, outgoing in that discussion was Sven. He was a bit ballsy, let's call it like that, because he said he doesn't want to learn any Spanish, so the Spanish group didn't work for him. There were also some discussions on the internet why not people who already speak Spanish were part of that Spanish speaking task group. But I personally think that probably the team, so the producers said no, we want people who don't speak Spanish, because the idea of that group is that they learn Spanish, or that they at least do not understand it. If they really told the candidates that, then I think they could have also told us as the viewers that, simply because otherwise, so as it is now, it leads to irritation and confusion and discussions. But maybe they also want it, so it's the mold still. Now let's head into the task, and we start with the hotel group, so with Bert and Nele. As we know, Nele is out of the game, she can't be the mole anymore, but we have to talk about Bert's actions. The first thing that is suspicious is that he counted the red M&Ms wrong, so he missed out one, I think, and personally, I don't believe that this is a mole action, but if it is one, then it didn't work out quite well. Simply because if he wanted to count a wrong number, then why did he leave the original number of M&Ms there? So he could just like eaten one, or if he doesn't want to eat one, he could have thrown it away or under the bed or whatever. Just get rid of 1 or 2. If he really got rid of 1 or 2, then counted wrong, and then Nele also counted wrong, that would be a little bit, well, I think, over the top. But still, if he really wanted to sabotage there, he could just have, well, thrown some away or so. The second thing about that hotel group that was a bit weird was that they kind of ignored the Bible they had. So they found it right in the beginning when they looked around in that hotel room, and they had one task that they did not solve, and that one task out of the 6 was the one connected to the Bible. And that of course could be a way to mole in that situation, to say, okay, so let's not solve all of those 6 tasks, so that in the end the Spanish group has problems to figure out who the right person is. But also the Bible in general could be a hint to Uma. Simply because Uma is a teacher for religion. I also had another look at the task and wrote down what that little Bible-related task actually said. and it was written in Spanish, so it says San Mateo, el complot para prender a Jesús, which translates to Saint Matthew, the plot to put Jesus to death. And to be honest, I'm not very Bible informed, but if any one of you has any idea if that could have any deeper meaning, then please share it with us in the comments. Or is it just any random, well, passage they took out of the Bible? One more thing about that hotel room group and why it could be interesting for them all. That simply is because this is the position on which you can sabotage both of the other groups. Nevertheless, to be honest, I think they did quite a good job, so I couldn't really see any bad, deep mole actions here. Maybe also because they kept watching each other. So if Bert is the mole, then Nele still well checked on him and it wasn't easy for him to mole there. Now off to the diving group, and I have to be honest, I think there the girls were more suspicious than the boys. The first reason for that is because the girls took so long to figure out which the correct statue is. And I think also the boys proved later on that you could have figured it out a bit quicker. So if either Uma or Emmanuel is the mole, then she probably tried to, well, waste some time so that the boys wouldn't have so much oxygen anymore. Or she also tried to, well, waste some money by asking one more question than actually needed. Nevertheless, the boys also wasted some oxygen by moving around in the water. So, of course, once you move, you need more oxygen. And as you know, the oxygen was limited. So it would have probably been a better idea to just, well, stand still. But I also have to add that I think it was a good idea to have a look at the statues, because the boys knew they were going to be the next group to figure out which was the right one. And to be honest, those statues on the water looked quite differently than those which they had on their photos. When talking about the diving group, we also have to talk about Emmanuel. And my first impression was that she really was afraid of diving so deep, and that she really had panic attacks. And I also did some research and read, well, how other people thought about it, and I would say that the majority agrees that she really was afraid of diving that deep and was about to have panic attacks. And that personally leads me to the question why they let her try it so often. Because this is really dangerous. You can hurt your lung when you're down there and you go up too fast, and this is really not, well, something you should play with. And I understand her that she wanted to prove herself and that she wanted to try it, to be a part of that, well, task, but after, let's say, 2 or 3 tries, I think they should have stopped her. And I also think Uma could have said something, said like, okay, Emmanuel, it doesn't work out, it's fine, it's no problem, I go down there. Because we also know that Uma already has some experience in diving. And yeah, I just think they should have stopped that earlier on. I don't think that this is a mole action by Emmanuel. When talking about that, we also have to think about why Uma waits for her underwater. She could have, well, come back up again and not wasted all the oxygen by waiting there. I think this is really something she could have figured out with her diving experience, and so that in the end she wouldn't have to stress that much when she was finally down there with the drawing from the boys. So probably a little more action by Uma. And last but not least, the third group, the Spanish-speaking group, so Anke and Philip. And to be honest, I really didn't see any big mole actions here, so we could talk about whether or not they really have to buy a translation for one of those sentences. But, well, in general, they found the 2 right persons, they earned the money they could have earned, and, well, didn't waste so much money, which is why I think they both weren't really suspicious in that task. Now off to the second task, the more or less out of space task. And in that one we had Sven on a very nice position, being alone in that buggy. We also had Uma and Jens, who kind of sabotaged the whole plan by stopping at the wrong information boards. Then we also had Emmanuel, who was speaking so loudly that Philip almost couldn't concentrate. And yeah, Sven, he was at the end, right in time to save them. And they also let it seem like he is the one who remembers a lot of things, who can, keep a lot of information in short time. But what about the theory that Sven is DeMol and had plenty of time to learn all that information beforehand? So what if he had all of those boards' information and already picked some out and learned some? Then of course the situation that he was alone in that buggy would have been like the cherry on the sundae on the cake for him. Perfect situation for him. I think he also kind of stressed the buggy which was driving in front of him, so Emmanuel and Philip, because he always said like, go on, I will take that board. And then in the end he answered 2 questions correctly, so that 3 questions were still left over. He knew that there was 1 question from 1 board which he didn't learn, and 2 questions which he wasn't so sure about. Why did he waste both of those questions he wasn't sure about? He could have just maybe tried 1 and then said, okay, I'm not so sure, I will let one of the others try it. Could have been a mole action to sabotage it by wasting 2 questions, leaving only 1. And then of course it was risky whether or not Jens and Uma, who were the only ones with that board, would be there in time to answer the question. Otherwise it would have been a lucky guess. And also, of course, they couldn't know, even though they were trying to learn the information from that board, they still couldn't know if they really, remembered it correctly. So this could have been a way from Sven to try to mole a bit here. Now that were all hints and theories to episode number 3 so far. If you've spotted anything else, then please let us know down there in the comments. Also let me know what you think about the hints and theories I've just presented to you. And if you don't want to miss any further hints and theories videos, then please don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, or of course still join our international Facebook group. And as always, until the next video, I wish you so much fun figuring out who the mole is. Bye!